The images are gritty, sexy, spellbinding, and iconic. For the past 40 years, Mick Rock has captured the drama and the vital essence and the intense theater of rock and roll, whether it's David Bowie as Ziggy Stardust, Lou Reed, Debbie Harry, Iggy Pop, Jimmy Fallon, even Queen. The list goes on and on for hours, and we can sit here and talk about them for days here. And so we're talking about Exposed, the Faces of Rock and Roll, the brand new book by Mick Rock, in stores now. You've got to check it out. No words in this book, with the exception of an intro and a foreword.
No, if you go to the back, you will find that there are captions with little stories right at the back of the book, in fact.
Right. I'm looking at this thing right now. Mick, I'm so happy to talk to you, man. Good morning. How are you?
Pleasure to be with you.
All right. Well, look, we have so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start with you. This book is fantastic. And I just, first of all, I'm a huge fan of Queen. And I know we've got so many things to get into here, but knowing that you are the gentleman that put together the iconic four faces of Queen, it blows my mind.
I did indeed, sir. That was, their brief to me was a black and white theme, and of course the inside of that cover is the white shot, which the other three members of the band thought for a while should actually be the front cover. Although Freddie and I certainly didn't agree with that, and I think in the end the rest of the band were glad that they went along with Freddie's opinion, as they often did in those days when it came to the visual thing.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, you think of Queen and you think of that image, especially, much used in the music video for Bohemian Rhapsody, among the album cover and whatnot. And it's just, it's fantastic. And I've got to say, these images that are in this book are so striking and so compelling that it draws you in, and you want to find out the backstory and what was happening at this time and what exactly was going through Iggy Pop's mind as he was there on stage, or what was, Mick Jagger singing about in this image here. So tell me a little bit. I want to know some backstories. First of all, let's start with you, man. What got you into photography to begin with?
Let's see. It's probably more. I mean, if you ever have a moment to check out my introduction, it gives you a little bit of a hint. It says that I kind of wandered into it. I wasn't really looking to be a photographer. I was studying modern languages and literature at Cambridge University, and thinking about poets like Rimbaud and Baudelaire and Byron and Coleridge and company, and somehow it took me over. It was, I think I said that in the fall of '68, in a state of extreme inebriation. I put it delicately.
Nice.
Because in case my mother reads it, which she's probably going to.
Right.
I wouldn't say I was high on LSD.
No,
but that's the truth of it. That's what kicked the whole thing off.
Well, of course. Go on.
Yeah, no, so it was really just a distraction, just playing around, and not really, certainly didn't have any idea that I would end up being a photographer. And then the moment came when people started to give me like $10 here and $15 there.
You realized you could make money off of this.
Well, I realized I could put off getting a real job for a while anyway.
Nice. And isn't that the dream anyway, right? For everyone.
Not to get a real job, yeah.
Right. Well,
that's what my mother's been accusing me of for years. I know you only did this so you wouldn't have to get a real job, Michael.
Right,
yes,
right.
Yes, yep, very truthful.
Very
mother.
true. Flipping through this book, it's obvious that a huge inspiration, I believe, for you is David Bowie. And, of course, so tell me a little bit about, there's multiple pictures of Bowie in this book, of course, the Ziggy Stardust era and from then on up to this point. Tell me about just what he actually had on you that left that lasting impression and really dragged you in.
Well, he was the thing about David, he was very hip, and he was he had a great deal of foresight. I mean, what he was doing in 1972, later on Madonna picked up on and Lady Gaga. I mean, he set the blueprint for the modern rock star. This thing with the costuming and the makeup and the constant changing, David laid down that blueprint. Nobody was doing it before him, that's for sure.
Right.
So, and the gaudiness of it all too. That was the other aspect. And Well, I think the intelligence of the man turned me on as well. There's clearly an extremely bright guy. And he was always more than just a musician. He was somebody that, of course, infected, you might say, the culture. He moved things around. Nothing was ever quite the same after David Bowie came on the scene. He was a visionary, no doubt about it.
Well, and certainly a visionary is just one word to describe him. I mean, this book that you have compiled together over the past 40 years of rock and roll history, I mean, it's so extensive and so diverse. I mean, you've got Snoop
Even
Dogg.
Leonard Skinner is in there.
Even Leonard Skinner. I was going to mention
Waylon Jennings and Cat Stevens.
And the Rocky Horror Picture Show pictures. I mean, tell me a little bit about being on set with that and capturing Meatloaf and Tim Curry in all his glamness.
Well, the writer, Richard O'Brien, was a friend of mine, and the director. I didn't know Tim before the movie, and they invited me down. There was, in fact, a continuity photographer, but he only took continuity pictures. No one paid me anything, but they gave me the access. They wouldn't let anybody else on the set, and I obviously did all the special setups and all the pictures that become famous from the show. In fact, there's a new Blu-ray out right now, maybe, from Fox. I think it's probably being released as we speak or within the next couple of weeks. And what they did for that was they shot the audience reacting. They cast audience from fans across the country, and they're interacting with the movie as it runs. So it's a very, very wild phenomenon, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Of course, at the time, Richard himself, who wrote it, who plays Riff Raff in the movie, he thought it was a complete loser. And frankly, so did the general public, because they couldn't do anything with it until a year or two after its release, when somebody got the bright idea of putting it on as a midnight movie. And then, of course, it's become by far the biggest grossing midnight movie of all time.
Oh, you can pretty much go to any city in America and find Rocky Horror playing somewhere. We have it right here in Charleston at the Terrace Theater. You can go down Saturday nights and catch the midnight showing, and of course dress up and throw things at the screen.
And every Halloween they show it on at least one TV channel.
Oh, yes.
Well.
It has to go. It has to go there. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, just first of all, you are an amazing man, and you've certainly seen a lot over the past 40 years of your experience here, being around all these stars. What's I guess, what's one of your most moments that have happened, that have occurred, that I would say just has burned an image into you that you will never forget? I mean, you've had so many, but is there something that has maybe stuck out with you over the past 40 years that you just recall as one of the best moments or one of the best moments of your career?
Well, I'll tell you an interesting moment. When I went to shoot Sid Barrett the day of the Madcap pictures, the lady that opened the door, Iggy the Eskimo, was stark naked. So that was, in a way, my initiation into rock and roll photography.
Very nice.
And, of course, she's in some... If you get my Sid Barrett book, Psychedelic Renegades, you'll see a lot of pictures of her there without her clothes on.
Okay, may have to check that one out.
Beyond that, I don't know. There's been so many things that have happened. It's... you couldn't have mapped it out. Let's put it like that. You couldn't have blueprinted this. It's been so many twists and turns and changes and ups and downs, but it's all pretty up these days, I have to say.
I can imagine. Is business still going well for you?
It's great. I mean, I shot the Black Keys recently, the Neon Trees. I got to go and shoot Usher in a week or two. R. Kelly, Brian Ferry in London. It keeps on rocking. Maybe all the yoga I do just keeps generating. I am a big Kundalini yoga fiend.
Well, tell me exactly where, something after looking through things here, where exactly does Jimmy Fallon fit in your book?
Well, Jimmy Fallon, as he's now been showing on his show, one is I shot an album cover for him. He put something out, I don't know what it was, 2002 maybe, in the bathroom or something it's called. And I did all the pictures for that. And I've shot him another couple of times over the years. And he does rock and roll unbelievably. And, of course, he does great parodies. And now he's doing more and more skits on his late night show, and of course he used to do a lot of those parody musical skits on Saturday Night Live. He's a rock and roller.
That's true. Yeah, I've definitely seen. I mean, he did at the very end of Conan's last show, wasn't he out there doing some guitar?
Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah,
there's a little clip on YouTube of me shooting him a little while back, and he was channeling Woody Guthrie that day.
Oh,
and
nice.
We're both singing "This Land Is Your Land."
Very nice. Got to check that one out. So I also saw in here you have a picture from 1980 of Madonna, a very young Madonna. Tell me a little bit about first meeting her, and then of course trying to capture that innocence that you have portrayed so well. And of course, this is the very beginning of her dominance through the 80s.
I don't think she was doing music at that moment. She certainly hadn't made a record. Just a guy I knew called Bleecker Bob, who has this famous record store in the West Village in New York, would occasionally bring people up who wanted to say hello to me. This is when I first had a studio in New York in 1980, and I was still running between London and New York. And one day he brought this young lady up, and I really just did a few test shots of her, and I didn't really think much more about it. And in fact, the pictures didn't even see the light of day till about 3 or 4 years ago. So she was, well, you can see she's very raw.
Right.
I mean, she hasn't even plucked her eyebrows properly. So she was, I can't remember too much about her because I was pretty high and wild myself in those days. But she stuck her tongue out in my camera, and I took a picture of it. I've got a bunch of pictures. I need to dig out the other ones too, because these might have been among the very first that were ever taken of her, in fact.
Very nice. We're talking to Mr. Mick Rock, author of Expose the Faces of Rock and Roll. It's a giant photographic experience that, unlike any other that I've seen in stores now, you've got to check it out. So many great things you've witnessed. Of course, you've been to Woodstock. You've taken pictures of just about everyone that has been, and as well as current.
Current, well, very important, yes.
That is. Tell us a little bit about the current scene and seeing the changes.
Also want to say that if you go to mickrock.com, you'll find a link that says Exposed, and if you pop into that link, you can see about 40% of the pictures that are in the book. You see me flipping through the pages and talking about the pictures. Just wanted to get that in,
okay,
so that you can get a taste of it before you actually buy it.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, I love to shoot nowadays. I'm having a great time with, I mean, I suppose because I've been around for a while and have a track record, I get a lot of room to maneuver, as it were. So,
right.
I can, if somebody's going to come to me to do a shot, they want me to do a Mick Rock shot. So I have a lot of creative freedom.
It's certainly one of the best shots you can possibly have in rock and roll. And being so close to these stars back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and now...
Not the 60s.
Maybe not the
really,
60s?
No,
okay.
It was the autumn of 69 when I took those pictures of Sid. That's when it really rolled, something like September.
Okay,
so
mostly
just
the 70s.
A little dab of the 60s, yes.
Tell us about what you've noticed as a change primarily in the just the actual attitude and stature of some of the rock stars and music stars, I guess to say, today compared to the stars of the 70s.
Well, in general, the ones that are going to have a serious punt are much more organized. They're less chemically impaired, that's for sure.
Right.
Because today you have to be on your game. There's so much media. And, I mean, look at me even. I mean, who was going to interview me in 1972? Nobody. You didn't interview photographers back in those days. Certainly, it was a long time before books or exhibitions or the like were being thought about. So it's a very, very different time. And you've got to be organized. You've got to do a lot of promotion. Back then, certain people did a bunch, but for the most part, rock and roll bands were on the lam, like Iggy and the Stooges,
yeah.
I mean, that was an amazing thing to behold in 1972.
In 1975, you took a shot of Bob Marley, and you are quoted as saying that it was the closest thing to a religious experience at a concert as you've ever had. Tell me a little bit about that.
True. true. It was just it was the summer. I think it was the summer of '75. And he played either 2 or 3 concerts at the Hammersmith Odeon in London. And I just remember this feeling, which was a phenomenal feeling. Of course, his audience, although there was a certain amount of black, a certain number of black fans, there was still mostly white middle-class kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he really, even though he was singing about the oppression, I mean, at times he had a great diversity in his songwriting, but get up, stand up for your rights. He was, nevertheless, the audience that really broke him out was a middle-class white audience, and it was like being in a religious swamp. It was so powerful, his energy, and of course he's one of the few singers that could put over a message and still have the art remain intact, you know. I mean, Bob Dylan, people would talk about messages, but he kept it pretty surreal and symbolic. Bob spoke very directly at times, but he still maintained the integrity of his art. He didn't get swamped by his political or religious views.
Maybe a little hard to understand sometimes as well, but that's just Bob Dylan.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
But Bob is a different animal, although they both shared the first name.
Well, again, with Bob Marley, just another one of the great stars that we
And he's
unfortunately
in
lost
it
too early.
opposite Ziggy Marley. I met Ziggy Marley for the first time last year. It must have been last autumn, and he actually was playing at a private party, and he sang Bob Marley songs. He channeled his dad.
Did he really?
And that was a remarkable experience, because it felt like Bob was in the room for a moment or two there. And of course I got that great picture of his smile afterwards, and I thought he's got to go in alongside his dad.
Oh, that's just amazing. Such a great book you've put together here, Exposed. We're talking to Mick Rock, and just, do you have a favorite picture? I mean, I obviously see you've got a great picture of David Bowie here on the cover of the book, and like I said earlier, multiple pictures of Bowie throughout the book, mixed with
Debbie
so many
Harry.
other stars. Debbie Harry is probably one of your
favorites?
favorites?
She's up there, contenders, certainly. I mean, I shot a lot of pictures of Debbie because I've got a book out there that's being actually reissued in America in the new year with a different cover on it. But that one of Bowie on the cover, obviously there's a reason why that one did make the cover. It wasn't just because it was David. It was also the nature of the shot and that beady eye that follows you around the room.
It's very Phantom of the Opera-esque, if you will.
Yeah, it could be, yes. David, but yeah, I mean, it depends on the day of the year. Sometimes it's the Syd Barrett pictures. Sometimes it's a photograph I took yesterday. It kind of, it shifts around. But certainly, yeah, there's a reason that picture's on the front cover.
Well, your pictures can be seen multiple places. Of course, mickrock.com. The brand new book, Exposed, in stores now. Your pictures are hanging currently and have hung in galleries and museums throughout the world, even London, L.A., San Francisco, Tokyo, everywhere. It'll tell me a little bit about, before I let you go here, tell me about the Tokyo experience. I guess you've got some
That's the biggest show I ever had, in fact. It was massive at the Tokyo Metropolitan Museum of Photography. Well, you've got to understand that the biggest rock stars ever in Japan are, in fact, David Bowie and Freddie Mercury. They outstrip anybody else by far, certainly much more, because of their visual appeal. I think that had a lot to do with it as well. So that was a very exciting experience, and that also set up the opportunity to work with Kanzaburo Nakamura, who's the premier classical kabuki theater master, producer, actor, and there's 4 of those shots in the book, because kabuki is part of the root of the modern visual of rock and roll, as you know, David was very influenced by it, and I've done exhibitions of books in Japan based on my kabuki theater pictures.
No, I could talk to you all day about this. There's just so many pictures in here that I want to know the backstory of, and
Check out the back of the book, though. There are little captions, yes, albeit they're relatively short, but they will at least locate it in time and place, and they'll give some little anecdote.
Fantastic. Well, you've got to check out mickrock.com. You've got to check out Exposed, the brand new book that's in stores now. And I've got to say thank you so much for joining me today, and I appreciate everything that you've filled me in on. Is there anything else you want to, some last secrets perhaps that you would like to just reveal with our listeners about some background stories that may be something that you won't find in the book that would be great to know?
No, let me just give a warning to young photographers.
Sure.
Photography is not for the faint of heart. It's more like a disease. Once you begin, it's very hard to stop. And I don't know about making a living. Yes, I do very well nowadays, but it took a lot of beating and craziness to actually get this far along. So beware if you want to be a full-time photographer. It's a crazy life.
All right, we'll take the warning in stride there. Thank you very much, Mick, and you have a great day, man. I appreciate it.
And you love.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.